Hello, friends, and welcome to Sleep Tight Stories. This is a story about a dog named Wiggles. Wiggles was a stray dog that had not found his forever home yet. He was being looked after by Mr. and Mrs. Jones, but they were not allowed to take him into their home, so he just stayed in the backyard of their building. One day, only Mr. Jones came out for their walk, and then no one came. A friend of the Jones came and took Wiggles to another place to live for a while. Would Wiggles ever find a forever home? Wiggles the dog. Wiggles lived in a house at the back of an apartment building which had a small fenced-in yard with grass, trees, and what once was a space for a small playground. He was very lucky because most of the new buildings didn't offer this space, and many of the dogs he met before he came to live here were forced to live in conditions less than his own. Wiggles technically was a stray, a dog without a forever home, but he didn't think of himself that way because he was loved and cared for by an elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, who had lived in the building for many years. He met them one day at the market, followed them home, and they fell in love with him immediately. Unfortunately, they weren't allowed pets in their building, so they built a comfortable house for him in the backyard. Wiggles woke up this morning like he did most mornings. He stretched, yawned, had a drink of water, and proceeded to walk out to the street to sit and wait for his two friends. "Good morning, Mr. Wiggles," said Mr. Jones as he gave Wiggles a treat. "Mother can't join us today because she isn't feeling her usual self, so I'm afraid you are stuck with me." Wiggles couldn't talk, but he greeted Mr. Jones the way he always did, by wiggling his whole body and letting out an excited yelp. That's how Wiggles greeted most people, by wiggling, but he reserved the yelp for Mr. and Mrs. Jones. As they started their morning walk, Mr. Jones told Wiggles their morning agenda. "Okay, so this morning we have to go to the grocery store to get you some food and some bread and sandwich meat for us. Then we are off to the pharmacy to get Mother's medicine, and then we can have a stop in the park where we can enjoy some ice cream." Now, I know we shouldn't enjoy ice cream without Mother, but she insisted that we share some. And well, when she insists on something, I think we better listen. Don't you agree, Mr. Wiggles? Wiggles barked in response. They arrived at their first stop, the grocery store, and Mr. Jones went in to buy the food for Wiggles and the food for them. While he was waiting for Mr. Jones, Wiggles was greeted by the people passing by on the sidewalk, to whom he would wiggle his body whenever they stopped to pet his head. "Okay, Mr. Wiggles, off to the pharmacy." Outside the pharmacy, Wiggles waited patiently again, enjoying the sunshine and the beautiful blue sky. Every once in a while, a dog would walk by on a leash, But Wiggles was so loyal to Mr. Jones that he would act somewhat aloof and ignore their requests to follow them down the street. "Okay, Mr. Wiggles, let's go enjoy this nice spring day by visiting the park and eating some ice cream." Mr. Jones got the ice cream at a small ice cream truck that was parked there during the warmer months, and he had a seat on a nearby bench. "I'm going to have my bites first, Mr. Wiggles, and then you can finish it for me. This certainly is a big pile of ice cream. Wait till I tell Mother how tasty it was." "Sorry I can't play ball with you, Mr. Wiggles. I'm afraid my jumping around and throwing ball days are in the past. Walks are the most strenuous exercise I can do now." Whenever Mr. Jones talked to him, Wiggles always stared at him and, well, wiggled. After about an hour in the park, Mr. Jones announced that it was time to return home. "I'm sorry that we can't spend as much time walking and enjoying the park today. I best get back and make sure that Mother is okay." The following day, Wiggles woke up, stretched, yawned, had a drink of water, and proceeded to walk out to the street to sit and wait again for his two friends for their daily walk. And he waited and waited. As he was waiting, Wiggles was greeted by those walking past on the sidewalk, to whom he would, as usual, vigorously wiggle whenever they stopped to pet his head. Wiggles waited in the same spot until night fell, and slowly walked back to his house in the backyard. As much as any pup can express, if you saw him, you would notice a look of concern. But the next day was a new day, and though the sky was cloudy, Wiggles was happy to be able to go for a walk with his friends. So he stretched, had a drink of water, and proceeded to walk out to the street to sit and wait again for Mr. and Mrs. Jones. And he waited and waited. Then it started to rain. But that didn't bother Wiggles, as he would wait for his friends in the same spot, no matter the weather. And it started raining harder. What Wiggles didn't know and couldn't know was that Mrs. Jones had to go to the hospital because she felt quite ill. And Mr. Jones refused to leave her side the whole time she was there. When she was able to talk, Mrs. Jones said to Mr. Jones, "What about Mr. Wiggles? Won't he be lonely by himself while we are gone?" "Don't you worry about Mr. Wiggles, Mother. I've phoned a friend to help us look after him. You just rest, and I'm sure we will be enjoying ice cream together again in no time." Brendan parked his van at the front of the apartment building, got out, and slowly walked towards Wiggles. "Hi there, little pup. I'm so sorry that it took me so long to come and visit you, and you are so wet." Wiggles greeted Brendan with as much a wiggle as he could in the pouring rain. As he sat beside Wiggles and gave him a treat, he said, "I'm friends with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and they asked me to come and help you. I have a nice, warm, and dry place for you to sleep until we can figure out a place for you to live." Wiggles wiggled. Petting him, he continued, "How about you come with me in the van?" But no matter how much he tried to persuade him, Wiggles would not move. "Oh, Wiggles, I know you love Mr. and Mrs. Jones, but this is for the best. Don't be upset, but I am going to wrap you in a blanket, pick you up, and carry you to my van." Wiggles was a gentle dog and didn't protest when Brendan picked him up and placed him in the back of his van. As they drove away, Wiggles looked out the back window as the apartment building got smaller and smaller. He let out a soft cry. His new home was a noisy place with lots of other dogs, and in a separate area, even cats. Wiggles had his own room and lots of nice food to eat, though he did prefer what Mr. and Mrs. Jones used to feed him. But unlike before, he now had lots and lots of new friends to play with. Every day, Brendan would let all the dogs that lived in his shelter outside to play together in a little covered grassy area. Despite being in the shelter for over a month, every morning Wiggles would still sit and wait for his friends to come and take him for a walk. "Good morning, Wiggles. Did you sleep well last night? Or did Brutus keep you awake with his snoring? Or did Wolfie disturb you when he howled at the moon? You're such a good pup, Wiggles. I'm so sorry that Mr. and Mrs. Jones couldn't come back to get you. They had to move to a different home on the other side of the city, and they don't allow dogs or cats anywhere on the property. They miss you very much, but they are happy to know you are safe and looked after. Now, all we have to do is find you a forever home." Every day, Brendan would bring in a family to visit a dog in the shelter. Wiggles would stand there and wiggle as best as he could, but the families always took home a different dog. They all thought that Wiggles was too big. When they left with the other dogs, Brendan would always come over to Wiggles and say, "Don't worry, I'm sure that someone will appreciate your wonderful personality and adopt you so you can have a forever home." As the days turned into weeks and then months, Wiggles would still wiggle each time a family came in to adopt a dog. He never seemed to give up hope that a family would take him home. One day, a family came into the shelter to adopt a white poodle they had picked out on the shelter's website. They had planned on taking the poodle home so that their daughter could have a companion and friend as she grew up. The mother and father walked past with their daughter to look at her, and Wiggles could hear Brendan's voice say, "Good morning, Fresca. Some people are here to see you and take you to your forever home." "What do you think, Amelia? Isn't she just the cutest puppy ever?" her mother said. "Amelia? Where has she gone?" "Amelia, where are you?" called her father. "I'm over here, Daddy." Amelia was beside Wiggles, who was wiggling harder than he had in a long time, as she petted his head and scratched his ears. "Oh, I see you have met Wiggles. He has been with us for a while now and is the friendliest dog we have," said Brendan. "Where does Wiggles come from?" Amelia asked Brendan. "Well, Wiggles was looked after by an elderly couple who couldn't look after him anymore because they moved into a home for people their age. Wiggles is a very special dog." "He's a little big," Amelia's father said. "Look, Daddy, he loves me so much already, and we just met." Wiggles wiggled even faster, and gave Amelia kisses on the cheek. "Can we take Wiggles home with us, Mummy? I really love him already. I promise to take good care of him and walk him every day." "Will the poodle still be able to find a home?" Amelia's mother asked. "Yes, Fresca will still be able to find a home. There were many people who asked to come and see her, but you were at the top of my list." Amelia's mother and father looked at each other and smiled. After signing some papers, Amelia and Wiggles walked out the front door of the shelter, with Wiggles wiggling and yelping as they went. Wiggles had finally found his forever home. A few months later, after Wiggles got used to his new home, and Amelia got used to the responsibility of looking after a dog, they decided to take a road trip. By this point, Amelia and Wiggles were inseparable, and he followed her wherever she went, except for school. But he was always patiently waiting for her at the front door of their house when she got home. As they got in the car for their short road trip, Amelia said, "We are going to go visit some friends of yours, Wiggles. We learned that dogs are welcome to visit, and I am sure they would love to see you." They arrived at the home and were greeted by Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Mr. Jones walked up to Wiggles and said, "Good morning, Mr. Wiggles. I'm so happy to see you again. You look so healthy and happy." Wiggles greeted Mr. Jones the way he always had, by wiggling his whole body and letting out an excited yelp. "How about we all go for a bowl of ice cream in the cafeteria?" said Mrs. Jones. "What do you think, Wiggles? Would you like to go and have some ice cream?" asked Amelia. Wiggles barked in response. And that is the end of this story. Good night. Sleep tight.